As he navigated the busy streets in his sleek black SUV, he passed by the familiar sights of the city, flashing billboards, busy cafes, and groups of friends laughing together, reminders of a life he often felt disconnected from. James had dedicated years to building his empire, pouring everything into his work. He strived for excellence and financial success, but lately there lingered a persistent echo of loneliness in his heart. All around him, people engaged in vibrant conversations and shared experiences, but he was often an observer, detached from the very human connections that enriched life. With every turn, James's thoughts swirled in a whirlwind of investment strategies, forecasts, and meetings. Though he had accomplished much, the thrill of success felt hollow at times. He could see the shimmering skyline in the distance, the rooftops where people lived full lives, filled with warmth and connection. He longed to be a part of that world, to step beyond the walls of his mansion and truly live, instead of merely existing amidst his stacks of paperwork and business calls. As he parked in the driveway and stepped out of his vehicle, the warm breeze brushed against his skin. The opulence of his surroundings felt more like a gilded cage. The mansion, with its marble floors and expansive rooms, often felt cold and empty. Sure, it was magnificent in its design, but the grandeur did little to satiate his deep-rooted desire for companionship and understanding. Entering the grand foyer, filled with exquisite art and luxury furnishings, he was greeted by a silence that echoed through the halls. It was a familiar silence, one that usually accompanied his return home. But something was different this time. A flicker of anticipation danced within him. As he moved toward the kitchen, a delightful aroma wafted through the air, instantly lifting his spirits. The scent was warm and inviting, a stark contrast to the sterile air of his office. In the kitchen stood Grace, his devoted maid, her back turned as she stirred a pot on the stove. Grace had been part of his household for years. Her laughter and kind words often filled the corners of his home, providing a comfort that money could not buy. Though he tended to overlook their moments of connection amidst his busy life, she had always treated him with respect, patience, and genuine fondness. "Good evening, Mr. Harrison," she chirped, a smile breaking across her face as she caught sight of him. "I thought I'd prepare something special for dinner. Your favorite gumbo is ready." As she continued to talk about her day, James found himself more engaged than he had been in weeks. Grace had an innate ability to draw out his feelings, to make him see the world beyond the confines of his corporate life. As he listened, he felt the burdens of success slowly fade away, replaced by a renewed sense of presence. The vibrant stories she shared of her family, her dreams, and her struggles resonated with him on a personal level. Sitting at the table, he realized he didn't just come home for food. He was coming home to a connection, a glimpse into a life lived with purpose and love. Little did he know that this moment with Grace would set off a chain of events that would forever change his perspective on wealth, happiness, and the true meaning of home. As he stepped into the kitchen, the heart of the home, he found Grace humming softly to herself while stirring a pot of gumbo. Her gentle presence brightened the stark, white walls of the mansion, transforming it from a house into a home. The juxtaposition of her cozy demeanor against the otherwise cold luxury of the home struck James. This was a space where joy lingered, a refuge from the relentless pace of his corporate world. "Good evening, Mr. Harrison," Grace greeted, wiping her hands on her apron, her eyes sparkling with joy as they met his. "I prepared your favorite dish." James smiled, the stress from the day beginning to melt away as he inhaled the rich, savory aroma of the gumbo. "It smells amazing, Grace. You always know how to make it feel like home." The phrase held more weight than just mere words. It was a testament to Grace's ability to create a sense of belonging, even amidst the grandiosity of his wealth. He took a seat at the kitchen table, where the informal setting, complete with vibrant tablecloths and fresh flowers, drew him in. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow through the window, he felt the ripple of peace wash over him. In this moment, he could almost forget the pressures of his day-to-day life. Grace began to serve the gumbo, her hands moving with practiced ease. I made it just the way you like it, spicy but not too hot. It's important to get the balance just right. She chuckled lightly, and it was a sound that filled the kitchen with an infectious joy. Thank you, Grace. You always know how to get it just right, he replied genuinely. As he took the first spoonful, the flavors danced on his palate, bringing a flood of nostalgia with it. It reminded him of simpler times, a child coming home after school to a loving family dinner. They began to chat, a comfortable rhythm settling between them. James spoke about his day, a particularly difficult negotiation that had almost derailed his plans for expansion. He was surprised at how easy it was to share his frustrations with Grace. It was as if her presence provided a safe harbor where he could lay down the armor he wore in the corporate world. Grace listened intently, nodding with understanding. You work too hard, James. Sometimes you need to take a step back and remember what you're working for. It's not just about the money. It's about the moments like these. Her words struck a chord deep within him. She was right. He often lost sight of the very essence of why he dedicated himself to his work. It was not only about creating wealth, but about building memories, creating connections, and embracing life's simple pleasures. As they shared the meal, laughter and conversation flowed freely, transforming the kitchen into a sanctuary of warmth. In that moment, surrounded by the aroma of gumbo and the gentle sounds of home, James realized how much he had taken Grace for granted. She was not just an employee. She was a steadfast presence in his life, reminding him of the importance of connection, love, and the joy found in even the simplest of meals. Finishing his plate, James leaned back, a satisfied smile on his face. You've made my day, Grace. Truly, I don't tell you enough how much I appreciate you. The sincerity in his voice surprised even him. It felt good to express gratitude, to acknowledge the value of their relationship. Grace smiled warmly, her eyes lighting up. You don't have to, Mr. Harrison. Just remember that it's the little things that matter most in life. And at that moment, surrounded by familiar comforts and heartfelt connection, James began to understand. Maybe, just maybe, he was finally finding his way back home. As they shared the meal, James found himself surprisingly at ease, the tension from his day unwinding with each bite of the flavorful gumbo. He looked across the table at Grace, who was stirring her own bowl, her attention fully on him. It was a small yet significant gesture that made him feel valued. Slowly, he began to open up about his daily struggles, the pressures of deadlines that loomed over him like storm clouds and the weight of expectations pressing down on his shoulders. Sometimes it feels like I'm juggling too many balls in the air, he confessed, his voice tinged with vulnerability. Between the meetings, the investments, and the constant need to stay ahead, it's exhausting. And on top of that, there's this nagging sense of loneliness that creeps in. It's hard to connect with people when you're always on. Grace listened intently, her warm eyes filled with understanding and empathy. She had seen her share of hardships and triumphs, and there was a glimmer of recognition in her gaze. I can only imagine what that must feel like, she replied gently. But we all have our burdens to carry, don't we? Life has a way of teaching us lessons in ways we never expect. James leaned forward, intrigued. What do you mean by that? Grace took a moment to gather her thoughts. Well, I grew up in a small town with not much to my name. My family struggled to make ends meet. But those challenges shaped me. They taught me resilience, kindness, and the importance of community. She smiled softly, a fondness in her memories evident beneath her words. I often had to rely on my neighbors when times were tough. It made me realize how essential connection is in our lives. James could almost see the scenes of her life unfold before him as she spoke. He pictured a younger Grace, navigating street corners with friends, laughter spilling out like sunshine on a bright day. It's those moments of connection that keep us grounded, she continued, her voice steady and comforting. No matter how far we climb, it's important to remember where we come from and the people who helped us along the way. As her words sank in, James slowly nodded. He couldn't recall the last time he had shared such personal thoughts with someone. Too often, he brushed aside conversations in favor of business deals and transactions, believing they held more value. But sitting here with Grace, he realized how much richer life felt when he opened up and let someone in. Her genuine interest and grounded perspective illuminated parts of his own life he had overlooked. I've become so focused on success and financial gain that I've lost sight of what truly matters, he admitted, a hint of remorse threading through his tone. I haven't invested in relationships as I should have. You often hear about the emptiness of wealth, but it truly struck me just now how lonely it can be. Grace placed her hand on the table, a gesture of reassurance. Everyone needs connection, James, even the wealthiest among us. It's those connections that remind us we're not alone in our struggles, that there are people who care. Allowing others into your life doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Her words resonated deeply within him. For the first time in a long while, he felt the weight of his isolation begin to lift. In sharing his vulnerabilities, he absorbed a sense of camaraderie that he had desperately sought. He wasn't just a millionaire. He was a man with feelings, a heart that craved connection and understanding. Thank you for listening, Grace. I truly appreciate it, James said, his voice steady with newfound clarity. I've needed to talk to someone about this for so long, and you have no idea how refreshing it is to finally share this with someone. Grace smiled, the corners of her eyes crinkling in warmth. I'm always here for you. Everyone deserves a space to be heard and understood. Just remember what we talked about. When things get heavy, don't hesitate to reach out. As they continued their conversation over the last bites of gumbo, James felt a significant shift within himself. In that simple kitchen, filled with the comforting aroma of home, surrounded by the warmth of shared stories, he began to comprehend the true essence of wealth. It was not measured by money or status, but rather by the bonds we created and nurtured along the way. The evening had awakened in him a desire to foster those connections, not just with Grace, but with everyone in his life. Perhaps, he thought, it was time to come home in more ways than one. As the evening progressed, filled with captivating conversation and a lingering aroma of gumbo, Grace surprised James with a small, beautifully wrapped package. The cheerful paper was adorned with vibrant patterns, a stark contrast to the sleek, modern-day core of his kitchen. I have something for you, she said shyly, her cheeks flushed with a hint of excitement. James raised an eyebrow, intrigued but confused. It wasn't his birthday or any special occasion that he could recall. Nevertheless, he felt a flutter of anticipation. He took the package gently, weighing it in his hands. You didn't have to get me anything, Grace, he said, feeling a sense of guilt mixed with curiosity. With meticulous care, he began to unwrap the gift. The crinkling of the paper and the soft sounds of the ribbon falling away filled the kitchen, harmonizing with the comfortable atmosphere they had shared. Once the wrapping was discarded, James revealed a beautifully framed photo that instantly made him smile. It was a picture of Grace's family, her children and grandchildren, all beaming with joy. Their laughter seemed to leap out of the frame, radiating warmth and love. Alongside the photo was a handwritten note, elegant in its simplicity. It read, "Thank you for being more than just an employer. You make this house a home." James stared at the note, words lodged in his throat as a wave of emotion washed over him. He hadn't realized the impact he had on Grace's life, nor how she saw him beyond the walls of the mansion and the title of boss. That single statement struck a chord deep within him, reverberating through the layers of his guarded heart. As tears threatened to spill from his eyes, he felt a lump rise in his throat, constricting his voice. "Grace, I don't know what to say," he stammered, overwhelmed by her gesture. Here was a woman who had been part of his life for years, yet he had often taken her kindness for granted, reducing their relationship to a mere employer-employee dynamic. Grace's smile widened as she gauged his reaction, her eyes twinkling with affection. "It's not just about the work you've provided, James. You've made me feel valued and respected, especially during those times when life was tough for me. You treat this house with love, and that spills over into our lives." James felt a warm rush of affection for Grace, realizing the depth of her words. He had spent so much time focused on building his career, on achieving success, that he had overlooked the human connection that fundamentally shaped their lives. "I've been so caught up in my own world," he admitted, the sincerity clear in his voice. "I never considered how my actions, or lack thereof, affect those who support me." Grace shook her head lightly, her expression softening. "You can't be hard on yourself. We all have our moments. Sometimes it just takes a little reminding to see what's truly important. Relationships matter, James. They are what makes life rich and meaningful." Their conversation deepened, transcending the boundaries of employer and employee. James found himself opening up further, speaking about his past struggles and dreams. He shared vulnerabilities that he had kept hidden for so long. Amidst the elegance of his mansion, he felt, for the first time in years, a genuine connection with someone who understood him deeply. Grace listened intently, lending him her full attention as they exchanged stories about their lives. As they talked late into the evening, laughter mingled with a profound sense of understanding, transforming the air heavy with unvoiced sentiments. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of Grace's family photograph and their heartfelt exchanges, James felt a metamorphosis within himself. He was beginning to realize that wealth, as he had measured it, was far too narrow a definition. True richness lay not just in financial success, but in connection, compassion, and shared experiences with those who make life truly fulfilling. As they wrapped up the night with a final toast of sparkling water, James knew this was only the beginning. He had a newfound appreciation for the people who brightened his life, and a yearning to nurture those connections that would allow him to finally feel at home in the world he had built. Tears welled up in James's eyes as he looked at the photo and then back at Grace, who was watching him with a mix of warmth and encouragement. "You mean so much to me, more than I can express. I'm grateful for you and everything you do." His voice quivered slightly, revealing his vulnerability in that moment. Grace smiled warmly, the corners of her lips curling upward as she absorbed the sincerity in his eyes. She had seen so many layers of him over the years, his laughter during light moments, his frowns during stressful times. But this was different. This was an unveiling, a revelation of soul. "We are family, Mr. Harrison, in our own special way," she replied, her voice soft yet firm. "Always remember that wealth is not just about money. It's about the bonds we create." The weight of her words enveloped him, settling deep within James's heart. In that instant, he realized that the most valuable treasures in life were not the material possessions he had accumulated, but the meaningful relationships he had forged along the way. The lesson was profound but simple. Life's richness came from the connections nurtured through kindness, understanding, and shared experiences. As they continued to talk, the conversation flowed effortlessly, delving into topics they had never broached before. James learned more about Grace's family, her children and grandchildren, their dreams and aspirations. In sharing her world, he felt a sense of kinship he had long overlooked. It dawned on him how often he had confined himself to his own bubble, too busy with his empire building to understand the lives intertwined with his own. That evening transformed him in ways he never expected. It didn't just change his perception, it shifted his very foundation. He learned to value the people around him, regardless of their status or title. Grace was not merely an employee. She was a confidant, a guide, and a reminder of what life truly meant beyond board meetings and balance sheets. As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, casting a soft twilight glow through the windows of the kitchen, James felt lighter, unburdened by the complexities that had once clouded his mind. The world outside, often frenetic and harsh, seemed softer in the quiet solace of that moment. He could hear the distant hum of city life, but inside, he experienced a tranquil peace that had evaded him for too long. It wasn't just a meal shared or a gift exchanged. It was a profound understanding of love, respect, and human connection that would stay with him for a lifetime. The gumbo had nurtured more than his body. It had fed his spirit, reminding him of the importance of sharing life's moments with others. James contemplated how he could carry this newfound understanding back into his everyday life. He envisioned reaching out to his colleagues, being more present with friends, and perhaps even inviting Grace's family over for a gathering, something that had long been a mere afterthought. He wished to create a community within the walls of his home, transforming it from a lonely mansion into a vibrant gathering place filled with laughter, stories, and shared experiences. With a heart full of gratitude, he looked at Grace, who was clearing the table with a subtle grace that belied her strength. "Thank you, Grace, for everything. I want to make a change, not just in how I live, but in how I connect with those around me. You've opened my eyes." Her gentle chuckle filled the room. "Just remember, Mr. Harrison, it's the small steps that lead to the greatest journeys. You're already on your way." In that moment, under the gentle hues of twilight, James felt a spark ignite within him, a desire to embrace life fully, to truly live, and to cherish every precious relationship he encountered. The dawn of a new chapter awaited, and he was ready to embrace.